Hi, singers. Julie here with Austin Opera, and I'm joined by Stephen. We are very excited to share some ideas with you all today about how to sing without fear. Stephen, can I see that coffee mug you have?
Sure. This was a gift from one of my students a couple years ago. It's one of my favorite coffee mugs. Well, tea. I don't really like coffee, but tea is what I drink.
This is a sharp, not a hashtag. I love it. Cheers, Stephen.
Nice. And Julie, you are the best singer ever.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, Stephen, what are your general thoughts on nerves and on singing without fear?
Oh boy, that is a big topic, and we could probably spend days talking about this and all the different ideas. Um, the bottom line for me, aside from trying to figure out how to deal with the nerves and the fear, is being able to accept that fear is normal. It's a part of life, and getting nervous to perform is very normal. I've been singing and performing for many years now. I can't remember exactly how many, but it's a long time, and I still get nervous. It never fully goes away. You learn how to deal with those nerves, and you learn how your body reacts to nerves because everybody's different, but we all can feel some sort of a physical reaction. That's where we start to worry, right? Because we feel, oh my gosh, my hands are getting sweaty, and I feel a little feverish, or I might have a headache, or I might feel sick to my stomach, or um, insert other symptom here. The big thing that happens when we all get nervous is what? Our breathing goes away and becomes terrible.
Yes,
So all those
yes.
things, if you know that's a part of how your body reacts to fear and nerves, that can be something where you say to yourself, okay, yep, that's normal. I always get sweaty palms before I sing, or you know what? I just need to take some deep breaths and take a second, but I know this is how I'm reacting to fear and being nervous. You might
Mm-hmm.
even get to the point where you feel like I'm coming down with a cold. If
Mm.
you notice that every single time you've got a big audition coming up, you seem to come down with a cold, it could be a cold, it could be allergies, especially depending on what time of year and where you are. But sometimes it's just the power of suggestion in your mind. The mind is powerful. So
It is.
if you feel those things and you know that's a part of your process, that can help you kind of diffuse some of the fear because you're like, oh, that's normal. That's part of what happens.
Mm-hmm.
So the basic summary of all that, nerves are a part of life, and we have to know how to use them, how to channel them to help us be stronger performers.
Yes. Just hearing you talk about these things, Stephen, it does remind me of a time a while back when I was in high school, early high school. I had an especially difficult experience with stage fright. I had to sing for a very large conference. I think there were thousands of people there, and I had a little solo in my choir's performance. And I didn't perform as successfully as I would have liked because I got so nervous. And what happened for me is my breath just completely cut out. I forgot to breathe. And I don't think I had ever gotten that nervous singing in my life until that point. It was a new experience for me singing for that many people. And I didn't have that resource yet. I didn't know yet that I needed to check in with my breath before singing. And after that, that's something that I learned is that you can use your breath as a tool for combating the nervousness. Have you ever had any experiences like that?
Totally. Side note before I tell my nerves story, if you ever get a chance to see Julie perform, you would never know that she has a problem or has had a problem with being nervous because she is a beautiful singer and a great performer. I've done a couple shows with her, and you'd never know.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you. Yes, I will say, like, in that back then, it might have been seen as like I failed, but in reality, I still sang the piece. It just wasn't as lovely as I would have wanted it to be. And I learned from it. That's the
Hmm.
thing. I want you all to know is like, don't be afraid to fail. It probably will happen a few times that you will fail as a singer, but if you learn from it and move on for the next time, that helps. But
Which
I'm curious
I
of your story, Stephen.
So, speaking of failure, it's not exactly a fail, but I did learn a lot from it. So this
Mm-hmm.
was, going back in time just a few years now to when I was in my undergrad and I had to complete well, at the end of every semester you do a jury, which is basically like an audition in front of the voice faculty, and you've had your songs for the semester you're supposed to learn, which is, 10, 12 solo songs, and all memorized, and you go in the room and you pick your first one that you're going to sing, and then the faculty is looking at your list and one of them will say, all right, now let's hear the Schubert or insert other song here. So you got to be prepared in everything because you don't know what they're going to pick. So as a sophomore in college, sometimes you get a little distracted or overconfident, and that fall semester I didn't always prepare as well as I should have. I was cramming the week 2 3 weeks before the juries at the end of the semester. I was cramming a couple of those songs. Before I went in the room for my jury, I have never been so scared to sing in my life because I felt unprepared. Like I knew I hadn't done enough work to really be prepared. And it was so scary to just have to go in the room and start because after your first song, something else is coming.
Mm.
So then I cut to my second song, and this gave the first great lesson I learned was prepare. The second lesson I learned related to preparation came in my song number two, which they luckily picked a song that I was pretty familiar with, but it was in German and had several verses, and it was in a piano break before my second verse. I totally blanked on the words and I could not remember what was going to come next. And that piano part was going along, and I was thinking, uh oh, it's coming and I'm not ready. But then I thought back through my translation. I knew what I was singing about. And so I knew what had happened in the story up to that point. And then I was like, oh, that's what comes next in the story. And that word means this, is this in German. And then I had the heavens parted and I realized that's what verse 2 is, just in time to sing verse 2. So I got through it, but my big takeaways were, oh my gosh, that was the scariest thing I've ever done. And it's amazing what happens when you really prepare well.
Right. It sounds very stressful, but you were prepared on some level.
Right. Now, that is the thing, and this is a problem that I've had, and maybe some students have had this problem too. If you're a good sight reader and a really good musician, sometimes you can get away with maybe not being as prepared all the time as you need to be.
Hmm.
And that was my problem because I'm a good sight reader.
You're an
So I
excellent
was
sight
able
reader.
to,
Yeah.
well, thank you. I was able to go to a
You,
voice lesson and sing a song and not, I mean, I'm sure my teacher was aware that I wasn't as prepared, but I was able to get through it. So I really learned from that, like, oh no, you have to really prepare so that you're not just going through the motions of like, I sang my notes and my rhythms and my words,
hmm.
but now I want to do more. Which leads me to strategy suggestion number one.
Yes.
Preparation is the single biggest thing that you can do to help yourself because if you are well prepared, it's just going to be easier to sing because you're going to know physically in your muscle memory and in your body what to do and how to navigate that song. It's going to help you because when you get nervous, the first thing your body does is revert back to whatever it knows best. And if the thing that your body knows best is a well prepared, ready to go song, then that's what your body's going to do. If the thing your body knows best is, I sort of know my stuff, then you feel nervous. And you add to that by one other layer of nerves, which is the subconscious layer that says, I know I didn't practice as much as I should have, so I feel guilty about that. and then I'm nervous because of that. So it's just like this
Mm-hmm,
this
mm-hmm.
giant pile of nerves that dumps on you that if you prepare well, you can kind of lift that pile and get rid of a lot of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. In addition to to practicing your music, to really knowing your music, knowing the notes, the rhythms, the words, the meaning, having an idea of how you want to convey the story. Another way that you can prepare for performing is to actually perform. So perform for family members and friends in advance. Perform in front of your phone, video record yourself and go back and watch it and see, oh, maybe I can improve a little here or a little there. You can even perform in a mirror for yourself. So those are all other ways that students can get more prepared. But what else do you think, Stephen? What can we add to this besides preparation and practicing performing?
I mean, those really are the huge goals to accomplish in the lead up to an audition or a concert or a performance. This is the long-term foundation work.
Yes, yes,
In the moment, though, you may want to know, like, well, what can I do right before I sing? I'm really nervous. And
yes,
this is a strategy that I have found to be successful, and I tell all my students to do this. If you set specific performance goals for performance, that can really help you short circuit your brain a little bit and get rid of some of the fear. Because before we perform, our minds are sometimes running a mile a minute. We're thinking of all the things that could go wrong, and it becomes too much. So if you give yourself two, I would say no more than three, two or three very specific, actionable, positive goals. That's the key here. They have to be something that you can do, and they have to be positive. So you can't say, my goal for this performance is I want to not mess up, or I want to not trip over my feet as I walk in the room. They have to be something like, I'm going to make sure that every breath I take is a good full breath. Every dynamic marking in the score, I'm really gonna do a good strong dynamic marking whenever it shows up. I'm going to be very expressive with my language and my words. Insert other ideas. There's so many different ideas you can pick in terms of your performance. But if you give yourself those two or three specific goals, that can help calm you down because then you're giving yourself a job to do rather than what could go wrong. And then when you focus on those specific things, oftentimes that helps your performance become stronger. And then on the other end of your audition, it also helps you be able to say, you know what, that was a successful audition because I accomplished my goals. It doesn't matter
yes,
whether made all state or got the role in the show or got the gig. If you can say I accomplished what my goals were for that moment, then I was successful. And that is part of a larger mindset that I think is so important that does help with nerves when you no longer believe that you live or die by an audition or that your
mm-hmm.
value as a person is determined by an audition. Because if you can accept, like, you know what, I'm human, I'm going to make some mistakes, but this is what I'm doing right here in this moment right now, eventually that can help you be less worried about the audition in general.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the big thing for me is setting those performance goals before I walk in the room. So you might need to think about it a little bit for. I wouldn't do it like as I'm walking to the piano in an audition because by then I'm a little busy. But what once you've gone into the audition room though, what could they do maybe in that sense once they're actually performing while they perform?
Right. So I think some ideas that I have about that when you go in for an audition or you're performing with your choir, or even if you're nervous to sing in choir class, I think it's very important to, again, what I learned back when I was in high school is to breathe. Just check in with your breaths and check in with the way you're either standing or seated. Do you feel centered in your body? Are you tall? Do you feel grounded? And are you taking deep breaths? just having that feeling of being physically and mentally present in the moment can help you so much in singing. So just finding that sense of peace in the moment with your breath, I find can be very helpful.
And on that note of being in the moment, this often applies more toward performing in, say, a musical or a show on stage, but it applies really to choir concerts, every setting. If you can be fully in the moment and committed to the story you're telling in that moment, that can also help you not worry so much about the unknown or the fear because you're so focused on the story. And everything has a story. It doesn't matter whether it's your solo and ensemble solo, whether it's your role in the school musical, if you were doing an opera role, if you're performing, Sleep as one of the all-state pieces this year. If you're singing Sleep, that there's a story and you're communicating a part of that story. So if you can be very present now in this moment, not worried about what I just did 5 minutes ago or what I'm going to do in an hour, be here now in the story. That can also really um,
Mm-hmm.
help with your confidence and help you not get sidetracked by fear.
Yes. And remember, singing is fun. Enjoy it. Enjoy this gift that you have to share. Enjoy having fun singing. And just try not to be afraid to fail. It's going to happen every once in a while, but it's not going to happen all the time. And when you do fail a little bit, just pick yourself back up and learn from it. Journal about it. Reflect on it.
And your definition of failure might not be the same as someone else's for you.
Right.
Oftentimes, you're going to be your own worst critic and you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I made that little mistake and it was the worst ever. When I was in high school, a lot of people can relate to this, I'm sure. Solo and ensemble happened. I was singing Zion's Walls by Aaron Copland, and that song goes up to some Fs, which as a baritone in high school, an F is a pretty high note for me.
Yeah.
And sure enough, as I was singing for the judge, I cracked. It was a big old, moment. And in my head, I was like, oh my gosh, that just happened. And of course, in the back of the room, my choir director, who I loved, he he was really trying to hold it together, but he almost lost it. He was just laughing.
Oh.
Um, not in a negative like laughing at me sense,
Mm-hmm.
but it was just that the moment it was just so funny the way it all happened. And now looking back, I'm like, that was hilarious. But in the moment, I thought, oh my gosh, it's over. I'm done.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But you know what? I kept going and I finished the song and I still got a one
Oh,
because the rest of the song was fine.
nice.
And the judge even had a written comment about, you know, successfully navigating that particular little moment. And that, in my mind at the time, was a failure, total
Mm-hmm.
failure.
But you just kept singing. And I think that's
Hmm.
huge too. Even if you make a mistake when you're performing, just keep going because the orchestra is
Yes.
not going to stop. Like if we're
No,
in
they will not.
opera, for example, as an opera
They
singer, the orchestra will
it's like a
keep
train. They
going.
go.
But also, chances are your audience may not have even noticed, no matter if you're singing with the
Not
piano,
unless you
a
tell them.
cappella, whatever, you know? Yeah.
Hmm. And this is something that I know now as someone who I now, in addition to performing, I also judge events. Whenever someone makes a little mistake, and I know in their minds they're thinking that's the end of the world, I'm done.
Hmm.
I don't immediately write them off. I start to pay attention, like, okay, how are you going to recover? And if you can recover and move on and be just fine, that is equally as impressive, if not more so, than being perfectly flawless.
Hmm.
Because it shows that you have really been building up your strength of focus and just preparation. Again, goes back to preparation.
Yep. And
Um,
Stephen, I'm realizing we should probably wrap up this video now for the students. But students, I hope that all of these ideas that we've shared with you today, I hope you find them useful. I would encourage you all to journal after listening to this conversation that we've had about some of your different experiences, different ideas that you have for yourselves about preparation and about being in the moment. And I know, Stephen, there was a quote you wanted to share with them all before we wrap things up.
So this was one of my favorite book series slash cartoons when I was a kid, and actually I think they're bringing it back, or they have already. The Magic School Bus and Miss Frizzle. In pretty much every episode, I believe she said, "Take chances, make mistakes, get messy," and that is the best summary of a healthy mindset as a singer, as a performer, whether you're practicing, performing, whatever you're doing, take chances, make mistakes, and get messy.
Yes. Thank you all. Have a great
Thank
day.
you. Cheers.